The battlefield was quiet now, but the silence was the wrong kind. It was the kind that followed after something violent, something that still lived in the air like smoke that refused to leave. The wind carried the smell of scorched metal and burnt dust, drifting through the broken remains of the outpost. The sky above was dim with drifting ash, glowing faintly from the distant fires. Evan moved through the ruins with slow steps, one hand pressed tight to his side. His suit was torn open there, sliced by a plasma blade only minutes ago. The burn should have dropped him. It should have ended him. Instead, he was walking, painfully, yes, but still moving as if his body refused to accept the damage. He didn't understand why he was still alive. He only knew he shouldn't be. Behind him, soft footsteps echoed on cracked stone. They were too light to be human, too smooth to belong to a soldier or scout. Evan turned just enough to see her silhouette emerging from the haze. The Alien Queen. Her people called her Aria, or something close to that in human speech. She was tall, elegant, her presence sharp and commanding even in the ruins. Light blue markings glowed faintly on her skin, pulsing like a heartbeat. Her armor shimmered in the fading light, engraved with thin silver lines that almost looked alive. She moved with the calm grace of someone who had seen war many times and survived all of it. But her face was different now. Fear. Real fear. She stopped a few steps from him, her golden eyes fixed on the torn section of his suit. They widened slowly, as if the sight of his wound was something impossible for her mind to accept. Human, you should not be standing. Evan gave a weak, tired smile. Trust me, I'm just as confused as you. She stepped closer, not with caution, more with disbelief. Her gaze locked onto the scorched flesh where the plasma blade had torn into him. The wound should have been a deep, open burn, but instead, the edges had already begun closing, faint threads of newly formed tissue crawling across the damaged skin like fast-moving roots. She inhaled sharply. This is not natural. Your species does not heal like this. No species does. Evan leaned against a broken wall, trying to stay upright. He said maybe it missed an artery. She shook her head honestly. No, I saw the strike. It should have pierced your side completely. Your organs should be failing right now. He didn't know how to respond. He didn't know why his body was doing this. The pain was still there, sharp, burning, but his strength wasn't fading. His legs weren't giving out. His vision wasn't darkening. Something inside him was fighting, repairing, refusing to quit. Aria crouched beside him, her eyes narrowing as she studied the wound more closely. Her voice dropped to a low, uneasy whisper. This should be impossible. Her fingers hovered close but did not touch. She looked afraid of it, not the injury, but the mystery behind it. Evan tried to straighten, but a wave of dizziness made him stumble forward. She reacted instantly, catching him with surprising strength, supporting him with an arm around his back. She felt her hand trembling slightly. Easy, she said softly. If something inside you is changing, you must not push your body further. Changing? Evan blinked. What do you mean? She looked into his eyes, and for the first time since he met her, she seemed uncertain, truly uncertain. Human biology is slow, fragile. When injured, it follows predictable patterns. But what I see, this is accelerated regeneration, beyond natural limits. Evan froze. Regeneration. He never healed fast. He wasn't enhanced or modified or engineered. He was just a soldier from a small colony moon, someone who barely passed his physical training. He wasn't special. But now, Aria looked shaken, and if she was shaken, then something was very wrong. Footsteps echoed in the distance, heavy ones, metallic. Aria's head snapped up instantly. More troops, not mine. Evan tensed. Hostile? Yes, and they will not let you walk away, not after what you survived. She helped him stand fully, steadying him with surprising care. Her voice lowered. Human, whatever is happening to you, it is not only dangerous, it is valuable. Her gaze hardened, too valuable to fall into enemy hands. Evan swallowed. Then what do we do? The alien queen turned toward the ruins ahead, golden eyes glowing sharply. We run, and we find out what you are becoming.
Aria didn't wait for another sound. She pulled Evan's arm over her shoulder, supporting his weight with surprising strength for someone so slender. The moment they moved, he felt the ground vibrate under their feet. Something large was approaching from the far side of the ruins, mechanical, heavy, and with a rhythm that meant trouble. Evan forced himself to stay focused. The pain in his side still burned, but every minute he could feel the flesh tightening, stitching itself together in ways he could not understand. Whatever was happening inside him was working harder now, faster, like it knew he didn't have the luxury of resting. Aria kept her steps quick and silent, guiding him between broken walls and collapsed structures. The ruins were a maze of shadows and jagged metal, all that remained after the battle that had torn the outpost apart. Smoke drifted around them like thin ghosts, hiding the moonlight that tried to shine through the cracks overhead. Evan glanced behind as they moved. They're close, aren't they? Aria's eyes flicked back for a second. Closer than I hoped. What are they? Scouts? She shook her head. Trackers. Machines built for hunting targets like us. They follow heat, blood, and sound. Evan swallowed. That's comforting. Aria gave him a sideways look that almost counted as humor. Your species calls it sarcasm, yes? He nodded weakly. Something like that. But she wasn't smiling. Not really. The fear under her calm expression was still there, pressing through the cracks. She had seen his wound, seeing the impossible healing, and from her reaction, Evan knew she feared what others would do if they discovered it. They reached a narrow passage between two fallen structures. Aria stopped, lowered him gently to one knee, and placed her hand against the metallic surface of a buried wall panel. Strange symbols glowed under her palm. Soft blue lines that responded to her touch. A hidden door hissed open. Evan stared. You know this place? She said parts of it. Old outposts like this were built long ago, by many hands, some human, some not. She motioned for him to enter. Inside. He limped through the doorway, and Aria sealed it behind them. They found themselves in a dim maintenance corridor, with narrow metal flooring and pipes running along the ceiling. The air was old, musty, untouched for years, maybe longer. Evan leaned against the wall and exhaled. So, what now? Aria scanned the shadows, listening. When she was sure they were alone, she knelt beside him again and inspected his wound. Her eyes widened even more. It is closing, she whispered. Faster now. Evan looked down. The burn that had been deep and raw only minutes ago now looked like a long scar that had been healing for days. Thin layers of soft pink skin were knitting over the edges. He still felt pain, but it was fading, shrinking beneath something stronger. Aria, he said softly, what's happening to me? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she took a slow breath and sat back on her heels, golden eyes glowing faintly in the dark. I have studied human soldiers for many cycles. Your bodies are tough, strong in spirit, but physically,
You do not heal like this. Your blood cannot seal a plasma wound in minutes. Your cells do not rebuild at this speed. So you're saying I'm not human? Her head snapped up sharply. I am not saying that. You are human. I have seen your kind for years. But something has changed in you, something your species has never shown before. He rubbed his forehead. Could it be the outpost? Chemicals? Radiation? Aria shook her head. Not this. This is biological, not environmental. Evan closed his eyes, trying to steady his breathing. The truth was sinking in faster than he could process. He wasn't dying. He was healing. Too fast, too strong, too unnatural. A soft rumble echoed above them, snapping Aria back to full alertness. She rose silently and pressed her hand to the ceiling, feeling the vibrations. They're scanning for us, she said quietly. They will find the entrance eventually. We must keep moving before they trap us inside. Evan pushed himself up, but this time he didn't stumble. Aria noticed immediately. Your strength is returning. Yeah, he said quietly, surprised. It is. For a long moment, Aria just stared at him, studying the way he stood a little straighter, how his breathing no longer sounded strained. Her expression wasn't fear anymore. It was something deeper. Wonder. Evan, she said softly, this is more than accelerated healing. Your entire physiology is adapting, changing, as if your body is rebuilding itself with new rules. He didn't know how to respond, but he didn't have time, because the ceiling above them suddenly shook from a heavy impact. Aria grabbed his hand. Run, now. They sprinted deeper into the corridor as metal began to crack behind them.
The sound behind them grew louder, metal tearing, debris crashing, and the heavy thump of mechanical legs forcing their way into the hidden passage. Evan didn't need Aria to tell him twice. He pushed his legs harder, feeling strength he shouldn't have, strength that surprised even him. The maintenance corridor twisted sharply to the right, then dipped downward. Pipes hissed along the ceiling, and dust swirled with each step they took. The air grew colder, the walls older, like they were passing into a part of the outpost untouched for decades. Aria stayed ahead by only a few steps, moving with fluid precision. She looked back once, checking Evan's pace. When she saw he was still running strong, her eyes flickered with something almost like relief. You are adapting faster than I expected, she said between breaths. Evan forced a half smile. Good timing, I guess. Behind them, the machine's voices echoed. Cold, metallic pulses of sound. Not words, but signals. Searching. Locking on. Aria's expression hardened. They detected our trail. We must reach the lower level. Lower level? Asked Evan. She nodded quickly. There is a part of this outpost no one was meant to find. Not humans. Not even my kind. That wasn't comforting. The corridor ended in a circular chamber. Broken lights flickered across the cracked tiles, and a dark shaft dropped into the ground in the center. A rusted ladder lined one side, disappearing into shadows. Aria approached the edge and glanced down. It's a long drop, but we have no choice. Evan looked over her shoulder. How long is long? Long enough to be unpleasant, she hesitated, if you fall. She swung onto the ladder first. Her movements were steady, practiced. Evan followed, gripping the cold rungs. His side still throbbed, but the pain wasn't overwhelming anymore. The wound was closing rapidly, sealing itself with unnatural speed. Halfway down, a loud crack echoed above them. Evan froze. Aria whispered upward, "Keep moving." He shifted down another rung. The metal vibrated. Then the chamber above them erupted as one of the hunters dropped inside, its glowing red sensors scanning the room. The machine leaned over the shaft. Aria's voice sharpened. "Move!"
Evan climbed faster, gravity pulling him downward as he skipped rungs. A sharp beam of red light fired from above, hitting the wall inches from his arm. Sparks exploded, raining down. Aria reached the bottom and jumped off the ladder, landing silently. She held out her hand. "Jump, now!" Evan didn't think. He let go. He dropped the last 10 feet and landed hard, but shockingly, his ankle didn't snap. The pain was there, yes, but already fading as quickly as it arrived. His body reacted instantly, stabilizing itself. Aria noticed. Her eyes widened again. "Human, your reflex recovery is accelerating." "We can talk about that later," Evan shouted, as another blast hit the ladder, sending metal fragments falling. Aria grabbed his wrist and pulled him into a dark hallway. Just as they slipped into the shadows, the hunter dropped down the shaft with a heavy crash, its red visor sweeping the chamber. They moved deeper, leaving only silence behind them. This section of the outpost felt older than everything above it. The walls were lined with strange symbols, curved lines and spirals that didn't match any human or alien language Evan had ever seen. Some glowed softly, almost alive. The air felt heavier, almost charged. "What is this place?" he whispered. Aria stopped in front of a massive circular door, buried in dust. She brushed her hand over the surface. The symbols glowed brighter, responding to her presence. "This is the Origin Wing, a forgotten research zone built during the early days of the Alliance. It was sealed. For good reason." "What reason?" Aria didn't answer. Instead, she placed her palm at the center of the door. A pulse of blue light crawled outward from her hand, spreading across the carved surface. The door trembled, then slowly slid open, revealing a pitch-black chamber. Evan felt cold air rush out, old, untouched, almost ancient. Aria turned to him. "Inside, quickly." He stepped in and the darkness swallowed them. The moment the door closed behind them, a soft glow filled the room. Panels on the floor lit up one by one, forming a circular design that resembled a star map. Many stars, some connected by thick lines, others floating alone. Aria approached the center of the map, her expression tense. "This chamber recorded experiments, long before your species knew about the Widet galaxy." Evan frowned. "Experiments on what?" Aria touched one of the glowing lines. "Life." Before he could ask more, she pointed at the star map. One star glowed brighter than the others, blue-white, pulsing slowly. It was positioned at the edge of the map, distant from the rest. Aria's voice dropped. "Evan, that star is your home system." He froze. "And the reason this place was sealed is because the research done here suggested something impossible." She met his eyes. "That humans are not what the galaxy believes they are." The ground trembled slightly, machines still hunting above. But in that chamber, Evan felt something else. Something opening inside him. Something awakening. The room hummed softly, like the star map itself was breathing. Evan stood frozen, staring at the glowing point that represented his home system. It pulsed in a slow rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. The other stars glowed faintly, but none carried the same deep, living light. Evan swallowed. "What do you mean humans aren't what the galaxy thinks?" Aria stepped closer to the map. Her fingers traced a curved pattern branching out from the human star. The lines were thinner here, almost faded, like old memories carved into the floor. "Your species arrived on the galactic stage as explorers," she said quietly. "Weak, curious, short-lived. That is what everyone believed, but the records here, they claim something different. Evan crossed his arms tightly. Different how? Aria looked up at him, and this time her expression was not fear or confusion. It was caution, the kind you use when handling something fragile and dangerous at the same time. According to this place, she said slowly, humans were not late to the galaxy. They were early. Evan blinked. What? She pointed at a star near the center. It glowed with the same light as Earth's star, just dimmer as if fading with age. This star belonged to a species older than mine, older than most in this sector. They were called the First Builders, and the records here claim the First Builders created a project. Aria turned to him fully now, a project to engineer a species capable of surviving anything. Evan didn't respond. He couldn't. His mind rejected the idea. It felt too big, too unreal. What do you mean humans aren't what the galaxy thinks? Aria stepped closer to the map. Her fingers traced a curved pattern branching out from the human star. The lines were thinner here, almost faded, like old memories carved into the floor. Your species arrived on the galactic stage as explorers, she said quietly. Weak, curious, short-lived. That is what everyone believed. But the records here, they claim something different. Evan crossed his arms tightly. Different how? Aria looked up at him, and this time her expression was not fear or confusion. It was caution, the kind you use when handling something fragile and dangerous at the same time. According to this place, she said slowly, humans were not late to the galaxy. They were early. Evan blinked. What? She pointed at a star near the center. It glowed with the same light as Earth's star, just dimmer, as if fading with age. This star belonged to a species older than mine, older than most in this sector. They were called the First Builders. And the records here claim the First Builders created a project. Aria turned to him fully now, a project to engineer a species capable of surviving anything. Evan didn't respond. He couldn't. His mind rejected the idea. It felt too big, too unreal. What do you mean? You're telling me humans were created in a lab? Not exactly. Aria shook her head. The First Builders disappeared long before your kind evolved, but they planted seeds, genetic seeds on certain young worlds, and one of those worlds was yours. Evan rubbed his forehead. So you're telling me humans were prepared? Prepared or guided by an ancient influence no one understood? She looked at his wound again. Your healing confirms it. You are showing traits the First Builders tried to unlock. Rapid repair, cellular adaptation, survival beyond known limits. Evan stepped back, breathing harder. But humans don't do this. I don't do this. I've been wounded before. I bled like anyone else. Aria's gaze turned heavy. Whatever's waking inside you, it slept for generations. Evan tried to focus, but his mind spun. He wasn't special. He wasn't a chosen soldier or a genetically modified superhuman. He was from a small colony moon, raised by a miner father and a teacher mother. Nothing about him was extraordinary. His voice cracked. So why me? Aria watched him for a long moment before answering, because something triggered it. Something recent, something violent. Evan remembered the battle, the plasma strike, the feeling right before the blade hit him, like pressure building inside his chest, raw instinct rising. Maybe the wound, he whispered. Aria nodded. Or the pain, or something your body sensed in the moment of danger. Before Evan could reply, the floor vibrated under their feet. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Aria's posture sharpened instantly. They found the lower level. Evan looked toward the door. Can we fight them? No. She shook her head firmly. Not in here. They will destroy the chamber if necessary. The knowledge here is worth nothing to them. A heavy thud echoed in the hall outside. Then another. The hunters were close. Aria stepped to the far wall and traced a line of symbols. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a narrow passage lined with old wires and dim lights. This leads deeper, to the core. If these records are true, we will find answers there. Evan hesitated, and if they're not? Arya met his eyes. Then we run until we no longer can. He wasn't sure that counted as reassurance, but he nodded anyway. They entered the passage, the door sealed behind them, plunging them into faint, pulsing light. The air was warmer here, thick with a strange energy that made the hair on Evan's arms rise. They walked in silence for several long minutes, their footsteps echoing down the metallic tunnel. As they moved, Evan noticed something unsettling. His senses were sharpening. He could hear machinery far above, faint vibrations through the walls. He could smell old wiring, dust, and even the faint scent of Arya's armor, metallic and clean. "Arya," he said quietly, "something's happening again." She glanced back. "Describe it." "My hearing's stronger, my sense of balance. I feel lighter, faster." Arya slowed her pace, studying him. "Your body is adapting further." Then she added softly, "This rate of evolution is unnatural." The tunnel widened into another chamber, round with glowing rings circling the walls. In the center stood a pale blue crystal that hummed with deep, ancient energy. Arya stopped at the entrance. "This is it," she whispered, "the core." Evan stepped beside her. "What does it do?" Arya took a slow breath. "It holds the truth." And before either of them could move, the crystal pulsed, and Evan felt something inside him respond. Something that wasn't human. The crystal glowed brighter with each passing second. Its soft blue light pulsed in steady waves, filling the chamber and washing over the walls like ripples in a still pond. Evan felt the vibration inside his chest before he even realized the glow had changed. It was subtle at first, a faint rhythm matching his heartbeat. Then it grew stronger, deeper, almost like the crystal was calling out to him. Arya stepped in front of him immediately, raising one hand. "Evan, stay back." He tried to obey. His legs didn't listen. Something inside him felt pulled forward, like an invisible thread had wrapped around his ribs and was gently pulling him toward the pedestal. "Arya," he whispered, "I can't stop." Her eyes widened. "The crystal is reacting to you? Impossible." But it wasn't impossible. Evan was already moving, taking slow, careful steps, not because he wanted to, but because something in the chamber demanded it. His skin prickled as the light grew stronger. Electricity danced along his fingertips. His breathing deepened. Arya grabbed his arm, trying to hold him back, but the moment she touched him, she gasped and jerked her hand back. Warmth. Too much warmth. "What is happening to you?" she whispered, horrified. Evan didn't know. His pulse hammered, but he didn't feel afraid. Confused, yes. Overwhelmed, definitely. But not scared. Because somehow, deep inside, there was a strange sense of recognition. Like the crystal wasn't a threat. Like it was meant for him. He reached the pedestal. The light flared. Arya shielded her eyes. "Evan, don't touch it." But his hand was already moving. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, the entire chamber ignited in brilliant blue fire. The ground shook. The rings along the walls lit up one by one, spinning, humming, resonating with deep tones that vibrated through his bones. Evan felt the energy rush through him like a river breaking through a dam. Memories flashed in his mind, visions of stars, ancient ruins, and towering structures not built by human hands. He saw tall, elegant figures of light moving through impossible cities. He saw worlds dying and new ones being seeded. He saw a species that worked with precision and purpose. The first builders. Arya dropped to one knee, covering her ears. "Evan, stop, you'll—" But he wasn't dying. He was absorbing it. The fire inside him wasn't pain. It was awakening. Streams of light flowed from the crystal into his arms, his chest, his head. His wounds sealed fully, disappearing without a trace. His muscles felt stronger, more controlled, more alive. His senses expanded. He could hear distant machinery, the hum of power lines, the faint tremble in Arya's breathing. The visions kept coming. A world of light. A project to build a species capable of surviving extinction. A warning about an approaching threat the first builders could not stop. Evan staggered back as the glow slowed. The chamber dimmed. His hands trembled with leftover energy. Aria rushed to him. "Are you alive?" He nodded slowly. "I think so." She touched his face gently, then pulled her hand back again in shock. "Your temperature, it stabilized instantly. Your pulse is stronger. Your wound is gone." Evan looked down at his side. Smooth skin, no scar, no hint of injury. "What did it show you?" Aria asked quietly. Evan tried to form words. The images were still settling in his mind like dust after a storm. "I saw them," he whispered. "The first builders, I saw what they created, what they tried to prepare for." Aria's eyes widened. "Prepare? For what?" Evan met her gaze, and she saw something new in his expression, something sharp, ancient, and awakening. "A threat," he said. "Something coming. Something the first builders could not stop." The room suddenly vibrated. Dust rained from the ceiling. Aria spun toward the entrance. "The hunters are breaching the outer wall. We must leave before they collapse the chamber." Evan nodded. But as they turned toward the tunnel, he realized something else. His vision had sharpened. His muscles felt lighter. His senses felt wide and alert. He wasn't the same man who had entered this room. Aria noticed too. She watched him with a mixture of awe and unease. "Evan, you are changing faster than I can understand." He didn't deny it, because he could feel it, like a second heartbeat inside him. Not human, not alien. Something older. Something built to survive. Another explosion rocked the outpost. The walls cracked, alarms blared. Aria grabbed his hand. "Come, whatever you are now, we must protect it. The galaxy cannot learn of this. Not yet." He squeezed back. "Then, let's get out." They sprinted down the passage as the chamber behind them began to collapse, burying the crystal and its secrets under tons of ancient metal. But the secret wasn't lost. It was inside him now. And it wasn't finished awakening. The tunnel shook violently as Evan and Aria sprinted forward. The deep rumble behind them grew louder, echoing through the narrow metal passage. The entire lower level of the outpost was collapsing, groaning under its own age and the force of the hunters breaking through. Aria moved quickly, guiding them with sharp turns and urgent gestures. She knew the layout better than Evan, but even she looked unsure at times, like the outpost shifted whenever she tried to remember. "Keep low," she said, under Fallen's support beam. "The structure is unstable." Evan followed, easily lifting part of the beam with one hand to crawl through. Aria stopped, stunned. "How did you—" she began. He looked down at his hand, surprised by how lightly the beam felt. "I don't know." Her expression tightened. "Your strength has increased again." They didn't have time to discuss it. A metallic roar echoed behind them. One of the hunters had found their trail again. Evan felt his entire body react. His pulse quickened, but not with fear. It was something else, something sharper, more instinctive. "Go," he urged. "I'll keep up." Aria didn't argue. She turned and ran, her boots echoing on the metal floor. Evan kept pace easily, even as the ground shook with more explosions. They reached a wide chamber, an unfinished research hall filled with old crates, rusted machines, and hanging cables. The ceiling was cracked with long fractures, glowing faintly with thin streams of dust. "This way," Aria said, heading toward a large doorway at the far end. Suddenly, a hunter dropped from above. It hit the floor with a crash, metal legs bending as it landed. Its red visor glowed like a burning coal. The machine scanned the room and locked onto Evan instantly. Aria stepped in front of him. "Stay behind me." But Evan was already moving. He didn't understand why. He didn't think. His body reacted on its own. The hunter fired. A streak of red energy shot toward them. Evan grabbed Aria's arm and pulled her aside with a speed that startled them both. The beam sliced through an old console behind them, melting metal. Aria stared at him, breathless. "How did you react so fast?" I don't know," Evan answered. "My body just moved." The hunter charged. It raced across the room on 4 mechanical limbs, each step shaking the floor. Aria raised her weapon, but Evan stepped forward without thinking. "Evan, no!" she shouted. But his instincts took control. He met the machine head-on. The hunter swung a metal arm, trying to knock him aside. He ducked without knowing how he knew the timing. He grabbed the arm and stopped it. Completely. The machine struggled, metal whirring as it tried to overpower him, but Evan held it in place. His muscles burned, but not with pain. It was raw power flowing through him like fire. Aria watched, stunned. This is impossible. Evan gritted his teeth and twisted the hunter's arm. The metal screeched. Then, snapped. The machine stumbled, sparks flying. He kicked its leg out from under it, sending it crashing to the floor. Aria fired a blast into its exposed core, and the machine collapsed, its lights flickering out. Silence. Evan stood there, breathing hard, staring at his hands. "I should be dead." Aria placed a shaky hand on his shoulder. "Evan, your abilities are growing by the minute. It's not evolution. This is activation." He looked at her. "Activation of what?" Aria shook her head. "I don't know, but it's tied to the first builders and to the threat they warned about." The chamber shook again, harder this time. Dust filled the air. Aria grabbed his hand. "We have to move." They ran toward the exit. The old hallway curved sharply before leading into a series of smaller tunnels. Each one seemed to twist in ways that didn't follow normal structure, like the place had been built by several different civilizations one after another. "One more level," Aria said, pointing to a ladder leading upward. "There's an old surface door. If it still works, we can get out." Evan climbed first. The metal rungs creaked under his weight, but held. At the top, he pushed on the hatch. It didn't budge at first. He braced himself and pushed harder. The hatch groaned, metal grinding. He felt the strange energy inside him surge again, hot, focused. The hatch burst open. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the smell of burnt earth and distant smoke. Aria climbed out behind him. "The surface! We made it!" But their relief lasted only seconds. Far across the blackened field, dozens of red lights flickered in the darkness. More hunters. Evan met Aria's eyes. "They're not stopping, are they?" "No," she whispered. "And now, they know what you can do." The ground trembled as the machines began to move. Aria reached for his hand again. "Evan, we must run, but we cannot run forever. At some point, we will need to understand what you are truly becoming." Evan nodded, his heartbeat steady, far steadier than it should have been. "Then let's survive long enough to find out." They ran into the darkness, the machines following like shadows that would never give up. And deep inside Evan, something stirred. Not fear. Purpose. The night wind cut across the open field, carrying dust and smoke from the outpost ruins behind them. Evan and Aria ran across the cracked ground, their footsteps barely audible over the distant mechanical stomps growing louder with each second. The hunters spread out like a swarm, red lights sweeping in wide arcs as they closed the distance. Aria kept pace beside him, her breathing sharp but steady. "They are faster on the open field. We need cover." Evan scanned the landscape with his sharpened senses. He spotted a rocky ridge to the east, broken cliffs and jagged stone formations, a natural maze. "Over there," he pointed. Aria nodded and changed direction instantly. They sprinted toward the rocks. The hunters fired red bolts of energy, the blasts hitting the ground just meters behind them. Dirt exploded upward, peppering Evan's back. He felt the heat,
felt the danger, but his body pushed forward with raw determination. They reached the first ridge. Evan slid behind a large boulder, while Aria pressed against another, both of them catching their breath for a brief moment. Aria peeked around the rock. 6 hunters approaching fast. 6, Evan exhaled. I barely handled 1. Aria shook her head. Not barely, you destroyed it. He looked down at his hands, still trembling faintly from the power that surged through him earlier. I didn't know what I was doing, he admitted. Your body did, she replied quietly. Another explosion shook the ridge. The hunters had reached the outer rocks. Their footsteps echoed like drums, shaking loose gravel down the slopes. Aria lifted her weapon. We will not survive a direct fight. Evan didn't argue. She was right. We need another route, he said. There is one. She pointed upward. A narrow canyon above the ridge. They will have trouble climbing after us. Let's go. They moved quickly, scaling the rocks with careful steps. Evan reached the top first. His strengthened muscles made the climb feel easier than it should. Aria followed, agile and precise. The canyon stretched ahead, tight, twisting, tall enough to block sight from above. We can hide in there, Aria said. They will take time to locate us. They entered the canyon, the walls closing around them like giant stone arms. For a brief moment, the world felt quiet again. Evan leaned against a rock and finally spoke. Aria, that crystal, what I saw, the threat the first builders feared, I think I understand now. Aria looked to him, her expression tense. Tell me. Evan took a slow breath. They didn't die out. They didn't vanish. They ran. From what? From something that destroys civilizations, something that adapts, absorbs, spreads. They couldn't stop it, so they built us, something that could survive it. A defense mechanism? Yes, Evan's voice hardened. And that threat, whatever it is, it's returning. Before Aria could respond, the ground above them cracked. Loose stones fell from the canyon rim. A hunter peered over the edge, its red visor glowing down at them. They found us, Aria shouted. 3 more hunters climbed over the ridge, their metal limbs clinging to the stone like giant insects. They began descending from both sides. Evan grabbed Aria's hand. Go. They ran deeper into the canyon, but it dead-ended in a tall cliff. Aria raised her weapon. We make our stand here. Evan stepped in front of her. No. Evan, you cannot fight them all. He looked over her shoulder at her. His eyes were different, sharper, brighter, filled with energy he didn't fully understand. I'm not running this time. Before she could protest, he stepped forward. The hunters dropped into the canyon. 3 landed in front of him, 2 behind Aria. The last clung to the wall above, watching. The machines raised their weapons. Evan felt the energy gather inside him like a storm waking. Then everything happened at once. A hunter fired. Evan moved, faster than human. He dodged the blast, grabbed the nearest machine, and slammed it into the canyon wall hard enough to shatter its core. Aria fired at the hunter behind her. Evan surged forward, knocking another machine to the ground and ripping out its energy conduit. Sparks flew. 2 more dropped in from above. Evan spun, ducked under a metal limb, and drove his fist into the machine's sensor head. The visor cracked. The machine collapsed. Aria stared in awe and disbelief as Evan fought like something ancient, something built for war. His movements were too fast, too precise. His instincts were sharper than any soldier she had ever seen. The last hunter charged at him. It towered over him, stronger than the others. Evan didn't back away. He let the energy inside him rise, warm, powerful, alive. The machine swung. Evan caught its arm and crushed it. The hunter tried to retreat. Evan grabbed its core and slammed it straight into the ground. Silence. The canyon was still again. Aria finally walked toward him, breathing hard. Evan, this power, no human has ever... I know, he said softly.
And I don't think it's done growing. She looked at him with a mix of fear, respect, and something deeper. What will you do now? Evan looked up at the sky, the stars moving slowly across the darkness. We find out what's coming, and then his expression hardened, determined, unshakable. We make sure humanity is ready for it. Aria nodded. Then she said softly, I will stand with you.